Hey everybody, this is Evan Abrams, and today we're going to look at shape layers in After Effects. I want to thank my homegirl Rachel, respect. She specifically wanted to know how to make a TV that turns into a laptop, that turns into an iPhone? iPad? I don't remember which. Hopefully that helps you out there, Rachel. I know that Lee and Philip Barankiewicz also had such a thing that they wanted to know about. If you want to send in a tutorial suggestion, use the link at the bottom, and let's get into the program, make some cool shit. So we're in After Effects, and we're going to make things with the shape layer. So you need a new composition to work in, so it might as well be that big, that's fine. But the big thing is, if you're going to work with shape layers, you just have to make some. You'll see I've got this checkerboard background. That's because I've got a transparency grid on. You can have it on or off, I don't really care. We're going to leave it off because we're going to be working in two colors. One's black, the other one's white. I guess those are shades instead of colors, but we'll just keep it two-tone for now, and you can get more complicated if you want. So you want to go New and make a new shape layer. If you're not familiar with the shape layer, there's a bunch of ways to make it. This is one, which creates an empty shape layer. Cool. Or you can click up here and you can get things like rectangles, rounded rectangles, ellipses, polygons, stars, and you can have those draw either a shape or a mask. And by default, when you select it, it's going to make a shape because there's nothing to mask. And then afterwards, you can come in and select this, then you can cut a mask out of that. So that's one way. You can use the pen tool just to make a shape layer as well. That's another way to do it. For us, we are going to go right-click, go New, go Shape Layer, and now you're going to see there's nothing there because when you twirl down, its contents are empty. Now you can add contents by using this add twirl down here or this one up here at the top. Let's go ahead and add, and we're going to add ourselves a rectangle because we're going to make the TV that turns into the notebook. Let's do that. We're going to make a TV that turns into whatever. I don't really care. But we got the shape layer and we've added a rectangle. We can't really see it yet, because all we have in there is the rectangle information, that path information. We're not saying how to fill it, we're not saying how to stroke it, we're not saying how to make it feel pretty. To do that, you're going to want to add a fill. So we've got a rectangle path and then a fill that's applied to the rectangle path. And the fill, let's make that fill black. Okay, so there we go, we have a tiny square. And when you twirl down into things, you can see more about them. So the fill is below previous in same group, its fill rule is whatever, the color and the opacity. Now that's all great. We go into the rectangle itself, we see size, position, and roundness. Now position, there are now two position things going on. That's the position of this rectangle. Just remember that. This position is about this rectangle, this position is about the entire layer. So the entire layer can be moved around, and the rectangle can be moved around too. Let's start off by making the size something more TV size. So we know that TVs are usually like 16 by 9, and that's really small, but you see I unlinked them, typed those in, I'm going to link them again, and now make this first value 800, and look how big it got. That was really great. And just remember, your numbers may be different depending on the size of the area you're working with. Now we're going to give it some rounded corners, just because we want to show off, and let's round them off by about 30. So you can see the difference that's making pretty good. You know, let's round them off to like 50, get a really way too rounded TV. Let's do that. So one rectangle done. That's good. Don't look at anything else. Let's duplicate that. Now I hit Control D or Command D to duplicate it, depending Windows or Mac. I'm on Windows, don't hate. Now we're going to change the fill here of this one, keep it solid color, change the fill to white. So this is a way you can change fill and stroke. Now I'm going to hit UU, tap U twice, and it's going to pull up everything we've changed about that layer, just because I don't want options all over the place. One of the things I want to do is I want to change the roundness down to be 25, and now I want to change the size of it. I'm going to push that in by 50 on each side. So 750 and 400, which creates this nice shape within a shape look. That's good. Okay, I guess that's done. And we're going to call this something like frame outer, call this something like screen, just so we can remember like what parts are which things, right? So right now we're just concerned about building what the TV is going to look like. What other parts are there to this TV? I believe we will require like a base, so duplicate this frame outer here, call it base, hit UU again, and pull up some information about it. Set the size in to be like 300 by, that's kind of a strange sized base. Anyway, select the whole layer and move it down a bit. So right now we're affecting the position of that layer. Let's zoom in a little bit. Now what we've got here is the base is not really the right shape that we want. I mean, you know, really I think it's too round. So set its roundness down to 25, so it has the same roundness as this. Stylistically, I like to keep things using the same units, or the same like gauges of units. Anyway, here's the base. Now what we want to do is we want to draw a mask on that, so click the rectangle, go up here to create a mask, and then we're going to create a mask that is roughly the size of this thing. That's great, but then we want to kind of cut this thing in half with that. So do we about do it? That's alright. Hit Control R to bring up the ruler anytime you need one. I just need to know, you know, where the center of this shape is, just for drawing purposes. And get this mask again, come down here and cut that in half. Great. That's fantastic. Ruler go away. So now we've got this thing getting cut in half. I'm not so thrilled about the height of it. Maybe 150. Sorry, unlink them. Maybe bring that down a little bit. And maybe 100 is enough. Okay, that's good. Position-wise, I think that's appropriate. Yeah, 870, it's good enough. So we've got a base, a frame, a screen. What else does the TV need? It needs like a stick in between there. So let's duplicate that again. Put it at the bottom. We'll call this stick. I don't know what to call it. I don't know what that part of anything is called. Don't really know what size it needs to be. Let's just try a 400 by 400 square. That's too big. That'll probably be good for our purposes. Let's make this 300. Maybe. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this down, set its center around the edge of that, and then just dial this in to where it meets the bottom of that. That's good. I'm kind of lazy, so anyway, set the roundness down to 0. That's good. Zoom in, check your work, make sure this isn't overlapping that in some visually unpleasing way. And now it's time to get to the part we were all waiting for, when we animate this thing on in some kind of interesting way. Some of the things we want to set up first is something like the base we want to be parented to the stick kind of thing. And maybe the stick we want to be parented to the frame, just in case we start getting wild and crazy. And the screen, do we want the screen parented to anything? I don't really care. So let's start us off. We know that the end state we want is this. So let's zoom in a bit on our keyframes here and look at let's look at maybe like a 2-second time to bring everything on. You gotta kind of plan out what you're gonna do. So I know that I want to scale this up. I want this to come on by scaling. So we're going to scale that. This is where it ends. And go back a bit, 10 frames. And where does it start? Well, I want it to start off being scrunched up inside this thing. So that's good. So we want it to be 100, 0. Make sure those are unlinked. So it's going to come out like that. And after it comes out, then I want the base to grow out of that, and instead of using the scale I want to use the size, because I want to preserve those rounded edges. If I use the scale it's going to squish those, so we're going to use the size instead. We know the end state is there. Just bump that ahead a bunch of frames, and we would like the start to be 0, I guess. That's good enough. So it grows out like that. None of this is terribly exciting yet, and you can see we have a bit of an error down there. Let's just clean that up while we're here. Just make sure that your pieces all fit inside your other pieces, just because that's what looks good. Because you don't want any erroneous lines. Like this line here is just sticking out a little bit in an unpleasing way, you know, and you don't want that. There we go. I think that'll do. More almost imperceivable. So how does that animate on? This comes out, and then that comes out. Okay, that's so far so good. Just keep in mind, it doesn't look exciting yet, but it will, okay? So that's those things. The screen and the frame outer, What are some things we changed about those? Again, I'm hitting U again to pull these out. And we're going to use the size of each of these to keyframe them on. And then we'll just dial it back a bit, maybe 20 frames back. And I'm going to set the size of this one down to be 50 and 50. I'm going to set the size of this one down to be 50 and 50. No, that's not it. Like 100 and 100. So what we've done is we've just turned a rectangle into a circle. And we did that because they're rounded rectangles. We know they have a roundness of 50. So if they have a width and height of 100 and a roundness of 50, then they're circles, because that's how those angles work. So a circle comes up and then that animates out. I mean, that's pretty good on its own, but now we can play around with these, because they're circles now, in different ways. Grab these, pull up their scale, if this is the scale we want them to start at. I don't even know if it is, but if we go back to the very beginning, we want them to start out as a scale of 0. Maybe they grow to be, you know, just tremendously too large, like 250, and this one maybe grows out to be like 500 or something. So they get big, shrink down, and then pop back up, and then this comes out. Let's select everything, hit U to bring up everybody's keyframes, and we'll see where we're at. That's interesting. That's great. Okay, cool. So we've got all these things coming out. And right now, it's not much to write home about. You know, I'll be honest, this is kind of bland. But let's take all of these keyframes that you've got here, and then let's right-click on them, go Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease them, or hit F9. So we'll do that. And then pull up the graph editor here. And I use the graph editor a lot just because it is great for being able to change the speed of these things. And we're interested in looking at all of them. So I'm going to drag a selection over all of these things, and then I hit this button down here, which is Fit All Graphs to View. Alright, that's good. So I've got to look at all of them. And then I'd like to select all of these points. And then I'm going to grab their handles. So you got to zoom in a bit to get the handles, but grab them and pull them over. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do some of that with them. Make sure you get the green ones too. They're important as well. And then pull the other handles over too. Make sure you get all the handles over. So we have this kind of a curve coming out of all of them. What does that mean? Well, when we go back here and we kind of observe how this is shaping up, we can see in playback that now their animation on is slightly more interesting, you know? So it's a little bit more mechanical, it's a little bit more cool. Really, now we just need to tweak these subtly to make it actually interesting. So one of the things you can do is you can take them and you can kind of slide them, kind of like overlap motions, so a couple of them happen around the same time, or, you know, something like that, so that one is starting before the other one is totally finished. That's always a good trick. One thing you might want to do is find like the center of two motions that are like the same. Like these two are similar, so stick a keyframe in the middle of those, and then bump one ahead a bit, bump one behind a bit, just so they're coming on at different speeds. So it's like one is chasing the other a little bit, and then do the same here, I guess. Anyway, a lot of tiny tweaks are usually what you need to make things how they ought to be. Just remember that you don't want everything to be too uniform. It gets a little bit boring, you know? You know what I'm saying? You gotta keep it spicy. Kind of vary things up as often as you can. Okay, so we have a TV that animates on. I'm marginally happy about this TV animating on. Not like a lot. I'm not like gonna write home, but oh wow, this TV animated on so well. Anyway, so we've got the TV that animated on. We'll give it a second on, and now let's turn the TV into something else. So this is one of those things that's going to task your design skills, which is how do I turn one thing into another thing? So the things we have to think about are the screen is a similar common object between both. So let's use the screen, and we'll use this to define the outline of the iPhone. So we'll do that. And what are we going to change about it? Well, what we're going to change is we're going to change the screen size is what's going to change. Set a keyframe, move ahead. You might want to look up something like what are the actual dimensions of an iPhone? I don't actually know, but the internet knows, so let's ask it. It says it's 136 by 640, so that's pretty good. Let's round that to like 1,000 by 650. That's not even close. One like that. Okay, maybe that's good. Cool. Let's actually flip those. Let's do 650 on this axis and like that. So that looks good. That's a bit big for my taste, so okay, that'll serve for our purposes. So our screen is going to go from this size to this size. We could do that, or maybe you want to induce a step in the middle. Like you want to have it go, instead of going all the way from one thing to the other, let's have it go on one axis first. So our goal is to get to 350 and 600. Let's move it 350 first, so it scrunches and then grows. So scrunch and grow. We'll do that. And then we want the black part to scrunch and grow as well. So let's keyframe its size, and we kept kind of a respectable distance off of the border here. So let's go maybe 400 this way, and you don't even have to move on the first thing. So that's, that comes in. So it comes in, and then it's going to go up, and I don't really know how much it needs to go up. I think iPhones kind of look like that, right? Right? Like they got like a thing up here and then a thing down there. Yeah, that'll do. So more. So it's going to scrunch in and then grow up. One of the other things to consider is what's going to happen with these things. What do you say we go back a bit? Let's push these keyframes forward, and we'll get to them in a minute. But let's get rid of this first. So we can just make it go away the same way it came in. So select the last keyframe you had, copy and paste, then the second last one, and go ahead, copy and paste that too. So it's going to pack up. It's going to go in, and then when it's going in, we can use this, copy, paste, move ahead, take this, copy, paste, and just pack it up. Pack it in, Let me begin. I came to win. So there we go. We've got this thing packing it up and in. So once it's gone, we can terminate the layer, hold down Alt and then square bracket, terminate this layer too. So you never want to see them again. So they pack up and in, and then we can start with other things animating on. So it's coming on, it's in, and then that's good. Now, we need to put in the other design elements that make these things, what they are. And those would be a circular button, perhaps, that line that kind of makes the microphone thing. So let's do the microphone line. Let's do that. Now we're going to make a new rounded ellipse. Let's do that. Let's just double click on this and make a new one. Boom. Hit UU on there to bring up its size, and then we can start tweaking its size down. And don't totally know what a decent size is for this. Maybe 150 by 50, 150 by 25 maybe. Yeah, I guess that's good enough. The stroke we don't want, so follow along. I hit stroke and then got rid of it. This thing, we're going to want it up here, kinda. I guess around there is where we want it to end up. But how do we want this to animate on? Well, we talked about using that circle technique, right? So let's do the size. We know that eventually this is where we want it to be. So we want its size to be there, and then we want its scale to be like that, and roundness is good. So eventually we want to get there. So move those ahead in time. But where do we need to start? I mean, the next step before this one, I think, is that it's a dot. So it's like a 25 by 25 dot. Boom. And then we move the scale up. The next step before this is that its scale is 0. So it goes, scale comes up, and then it comes out. So scale comes up, and then it comes out. So that sounds about right. So how much do we want it to be timed? Let's say it takes 10 frames to get there. Shift page up takes 10 frames to get there. So this all comes together, boop, boop, and then that comes up, and then you know, it needs a dot above it, I think. There's like a camera. So let's just duplicate this and then show me its keyframes. That's a dot. We have one. So really you can just delete this last keyframe, boom, and move this up to where it makes sense. I don't know how these things are supposed to be like aligned with each other. Does that look about right? Does that look like an iPhone? I mean, it's close, right? So, whoop, whoop. Okay, there we go. So let's have this one come up and go, and then that one comes up. Yeah, I'm feeling satisfied with that. And then the other thing we're going to need is like a button down there. So let's keep reusing things that we already have available. Let's reuse this one, duplicate it, and one of the things about that button down there is I think it needs to be a bit larger. So like 100 by 100 large, maybe. Just grab it and bring it down there. That's too large. That was stupid of me. 75 by 75, good. Hit UU, bring up more things about it. Its roundness should be, well, if it's 75, like 50 ought to cover me. So we're gonna have a circle button down here. Make sure that's in the right spot about. I think we're keyframing it on with the scale. Something weird's happening. Oh, here we go. We changed its position value. Instead, we wanted to use the regular position value. So use that to get it where it needs to go. Remember, if you start screwing around with the position of things inside the shape layer, then your scale and everything else is going to be really weird. So just keep that in mind. Okay, we've got that in the right spot, and there needs to be a square inside that, I think. So duplicate it. And then inside here, we don't need the fill, so select that and delete it. And then add a stroke, cool. And then within that stroke, actually screw it, there was already a stroke in there that we turned off. Turn it back on, good. Just make sure there is a stroke in there somehow with either of the methods I showed. Maybe the stroke width should be 5, but we can't see it because our roundness is too high. Set roundness to 0, and then bring the size in. Maybe 50-50 brings it in enough. Not really. 40-40. Cool. So now there's like a square button in there, and we should have an interesting way to bring that on. I don't know if you can think of any. Right now it's just scaling up. I don't totally approve of that. I think it should animate in from the outside. So delete its scale property. Put the roundness here back up to 50. Put its size up to 100. That'll be keyframe 1 for this thing. And then move ahead 10 frames, and we will keyframe the roundness. So make sure that keyframe is back here. Roundness is going to go to 0, and the size is going to go to 40, I think we had. So that'll bring... Whoop. So that'll bring in something. Seems like we need to animate it on in some way, so I guess we can go back and put the scale in. So it'll keyframe on from a scale of 0 to 100, and then it'll do the thing. So whoop, whoop. Kind of like that. I think I should do that after the button is already on. Maybe that'll be... Does that look like anything? Looks like a weird little thing coming out of there. Let's actually go in and animate the stroke width then, just because that'll be interesting. And set the stroke width up. Set its starting stroke width to be like 50. See what that does. Whoop. I don't really like how it expands out like that, but maybe I will when we go through and tweak up all the keyframes. So just like we did with the other one, select everything, hit U, and you can see all of these keyframes here that we've added in, you know, since it was a TV. You know, we'll get these guys too. So it was a TV, you know, and then it starts doing weird stuff. So let's just make sure we have all of the keyframes that we want. So then we're going to go keyframe assistant, easy ease all of them, go into their graphs, you know, make sure that we, in fact, you know, you can select everything in here because it's all going to get the same treatment anyway. And then we're going to just drag the one thing across, drag the other thing across, make sure that everybody is doing the monster mash here with us. I should just drag those influence handles across. Making sure all of those things. If you want to learn more about this graph editor, I have a tutorial just about it. But let's see what kind of voodoo we have created. You know, so it was a TV, and then the TV packs it up. I didn't really like that, so you can go in here and you can kind of tweak it a little bit. Tweak those tweakers. Maybe like this is more to your liking, or more to my liking, whatever. Well, something like that, maybe that's doing it. Maybe these keyframes here need to be changed. Just make them simple, easy eases. In fact, I kind of think that this takes too long to do, so I'm just gonna pinch those in. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's see, what else needs to be accelerated? That's alright. All of these can come in, pinch those in a bit. Which also means that we want all of these layers to start a bit earlier. Wow. Good. And yeah, so that's about how that goes. So we have created a thing that turns into a thing, and then it turns into another thing. Let's just play that back and see if we're happy with what we've created so far. So there you go, it's a TV, packs it up, turns into an iPhone. So that's kind of how to do it, and that's a basic thing with working with shape layers. You can create some cool, groovy graphics, moving stuff around. We've barely skimmed the surface of shape layers though, so don't worry, Lee and very unpronounceable name. There will be more of these to come, but Rachel, hopefully this explains to you how to move some things around, how to change shapes into other shapes, and really, I think the big thing is working with positive and negative space and identifying elements that are common between the things you want to transition to. So we're lucky. A screen is a screen is a screen, right? But if you want to use something common like I did with the button elements to move those around, then you get a little bit trickier, and you just have to plan it out. That's the big thing. Just like imagine all these things are parts, and you're going to move the parts around, and it helps to draw and just freehand it sometimes. So hopefully this makes sense for everybody. If you have any questions about the shape layer or things don't work out, just let me know, and I wish you all the best in changing this iPhone and TV into other things. I know I didn't explain everything in the intro, but that's kind of the challenge, right? I want you to try to figure stuff out on your own and really grow those creative parts of your brain, students. It'll just be a fun growing experience for everybody. Anyway, I'm Evan Abrams. That's me pretending to be a creepy art teacher. If you excuse me, I'll go get some wine coolers and lower some inhibitions in a van behind the school. So, see you around the internet. Comment, like, subscribe, check my stuff out, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to try to get one of these up every Friday, and like I said in the beginning, big thanks to Rachel for the suggestion, homegirl, and yeah, just if you have a suggestion, put it in the link below. I'd love to see what you guys want to learn about. So I'm Evan Abrams. Follow me on the Twitter, like my Facebook page, all that stuff like that. And if this is the kind of thing you like, then I'll see you next week for another tutorial. Thanks, and have a good day.